Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're looking at huge songs that caused controversy.
I'm spasticus, I'm spasticus, I'm spasticus artisticus.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Number 20, Peaches, The Stranglers. If you were young in the 70s, you probably remember this hit and the outrage it invoked in the more straight-laced members of society.
Strolling around, mind my own business. Well, there goes the gun, aha!
Its lewd lyrics refer to women being ogled on the beach on a hot summer's day, and it became a solid hit, reaching number 8 in the charts at the height of its popularity. But the establishment was having none of it.
Walking on the beaches, looking at the beaches.
Because of its sexually explicit lyrics, Peaches was banned by the BBC and heavily censored when the Stranglers turned up to perform it on Top of the Pops. A more tame radio version was eventually released, sanitizing this classic track. Number 19, I Want to Break Free, Queen.
I want to break free.
Drag has been a staple part of British culture since forever, from pantomimes to Lily Savage, so it was hardly surprising over here in Blighty to see the members of Queen dressing up as Coronation Street's popular characters in this iconic music video.
God knows I want to break free.
However, all the references, including that they were doing a Corrie parody, flew over Americans' heads when the music video for I Want to Break Free emerged stateside.
It's strange, but it's true. Hey, I can't get over the way you love me like you do.
Because of the drag scenes, the video was blacklisted, with even MTV refusing to play it. Years later, and Brian May publicly called the broadcaster out, deriding them as being narrow-minded. We can't help but agree. Number 18, Glad to Be Gay, Tom Robinson Band.
Picking out people, knocking them down, resisting arrest as they're kicked on the ground.
A decade after homosexuality was decriminalized in England, and LGBT rights were still barely on the public agenda, with many people in Britain finding any references to queerness that weren't tongue-in-cheek to be unpalatable.
Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey.
Well, there was nothing tongue-in-cheek about this anthem, raising awareness of the issues faced by LGBT people at the time, like censorship and police violence. Plenty of people loved the song, but apparently they weren't working at the BBC, which categorically refused to play it no matter how far it rose up the charts.
Read how disgusting we are in the press. The evening news and the Sunday Express.
Decades on though, and culture had changed enough for it to be used in Ashes to Ashes in an episode focusing on LGBT rights in the 1980s.
Sing if you're happy this way.
Number 17, Rock DJ, Robbie Williams.
Me with the floor show, kicking with your torso, boys getting high and the girls even more so.
If you'd only ever heard the song Rock DJ, you probably have no idea that it was so contentious. But it was the music video that was the problem.
I don't wanna rock DJ, but you're making me feel so nice.
Focusing on Williams as he tries to seduce the titular rock DJ, he resorts to increasingly desperate measures, taking off his clothes, then his skin, then his muscles, and everything else, until he's a gruesome skeleton.
I don't wanna be sleazy, baby, just tease me, got no family plan.
This disturbing imagery, with Williams throwing bits of his body at the women around him, who start eating the pieces, meant that almost no broadcasters would play the full video on television. Even now, we don't think YouTube will take kindly to us actually showing the meat of it. Number 16, White Riot, The Clash. Driving back to the 1970s, this hit from The Clash was deeply controversial. The latter part of the decade saw race relations in the UK reach boiling points, with Notting Hill Carnival the previous year being overtaken with riots and police brutality. Band members Joe Strummer and Paul Simonon were both at the 1976 Carnival and riots and wrote the song to draw attention to the racism people of color were facing at the time. However, it became more contentious when people misunderstood the lyrics, thinking that Strummer was in favor of the White Riot in the song rather than mocking the people who genuinely hold racist beliefs. Number 15, Let's Spend the Night Together, The Rolling Stones. 10 years before the searing politics of punk, and the Rolling Stones were in bother for the far tamer reason that their lyrics were just a little bit too sexy.
Don't you worry about what's on your mind, oh man.
Let's Spend the Night Together was a top 5 hit throughout Europe, including reaching number 3 in the UK, but in the US, it languished far down the charts because American radio stations were too prudish to play it.
Let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever.
It was unconscionable that two people would spend the night together without being married, and worse, that they might enjoy themselves, with the Stones forced to tone down the lyrics when they were just barely allowed to sing it on The Ed Sullivan Show. Number 14, When I'm Cleaning Windows, George Formby.
Now I go window cleaning to earn an honest bob. For a nosy Parker, it's an interesting job.
What's worse, two adults consensually spending the night with each other, or a lecherous window cleaner ogling all his customers? You be the judge, but back in the 1930s, this tune was thought to be far too racy, packed full of euphemisms and some quips that are so far up front that they can't be considered euphemisms at all. The song was a monster hit, just like many of Formby's other singles, but the BBC hated it.
The blushing bride, she looks divine. The bridegroom, he is doing fine. I'd rather have his job than mine when I'm cleaning windows.
Unfortunately for the corporation, Formby had fans in high places. The royals loved it, with Formby even performing it for King George VI and the Queen Mother. After that, the Beeb had no choice but to let the people hear it.
An old maid walks around the floor, she's so fed up one day I'm sure she'll drag me in and lock the door when I'm cleaning windows.
Number 13, I Want Your Sex, George Michael.
I want your sex.
He wants what? That was the question on many lips when George Michael came out with this song in 1987. The song itself, with its explicit lyrics and unashamed portrayal of desire, was already controversial, but the music video was hardly played on TV because of its sexual imagery.
Sex is natural, sex is good. Not everybody does it, but everybody should.
Despite Michael insisting that it was about the joy of sex between a monogamous couple, it still ruffled feathers both here and in the US, with a radio edit called I Want Your Love often getting played instead.
Don't you know I love it till it hurts, my baby. Don't you think it's how you had sex with me?
Michael later said that he was surprised that it was banned so widely, especially because of its many invocations of monogamy.
Come on.
Number 12, Spasticus Autisticus, Ian Dury.
I'm spasticus, autisticus.
If anything, this song is more likely to ruffle feathers today than when it was originally released back in 1981, with part of its title being so offensive that it's widely regarded as a slur in Britain.
I whittle when I piddle, cause my middle is a riddle.
However, since Jury was referring to his own disabilities, having survived polio in the 1940s, the song was intended to reclaim labels he himself had been given throughout his life.
Hello to you out there in Norway. You may not comprehend my tale or understand.
The irony seemed to be lost on the radio, however, with most stations refusing to broadcast the song, and even today, the lyrics will raise eyebrows at first. Even Jury's record label would have preferred that it didn't exist.
100,000 thank yous from 27 spastics.
Number 11, National Front Disco. Morrissey. Is this pro or anti-National Front? Who can tell anymore when it comes to Morrissey? But a lot of people have long regarded it as the former.
England for the English. England for the English.
Though at the time, Morrissey insisted that the song was ironic and was an indictment of the kinds of people who joined the National Front and other far-right movements, Morrissey's own politics have got more and more confusing in recent years.
Where is our boy? Have we lost our boy?
All of this means that these days, National Front Disco is often taken at face value, for better or worse, and he's been criticised by his fellow musicians many times for the things he says and does.
You've gone to the
Number 10, Ebenezer Good, The Shaman.
There's a guy in the place who's got a bit of sweet face and he goes by the name of Ebenezer Good.
To the innocent mind, this fun track by British electronic group The Shaman will likely come across as inoffensive. However, it's quite apparent that its lyrics are actually linked to substance use and the like. This left a lot of the more conservative members of the British public and media irate after the song's commercial success, which led it to hit the #1 spot on the charts. As such, at the peak of its popularity, the song was promptly banned by the BBC. While this seems absurd by today's standards, as this list will later inform you, that was quite the norm back in the day. Number 9, Smack My Bitch Up, The Prodigy. With a name like that, what do you expect? Prodigy blew up when they hit the mainstream back in the 90s. But when they weren't causing panic for media outlets with Firestarter, which they believed could influence arsonists, they were shaking them to their core with this electronic banger. The BBC labelled the track as sexist and potentially inciting violence against women. The song was never allowed to appear on Radio 1 or even Top of the Pops, despite its chart-topping success.
Smack my bitch up!
Number 8, Dear God, XTC.
Dear God, hope you got the letter and I pray you can make it better down here.
Have you ever heard the old saying, never talk about money, politics, or religion? XTC's Andy Partridge learned why in the aftermath of this 1986 tune. The otherwise melodic and successful arrangement of Dear God belies some pretty scathing and venomous critiques about divine injustice.
Dear God, don't know if you know this, but your name is on the quotes in this book.
The song's lyrics demand answers from a God who seems to not listen, a creator content with war, famine, disease, and death upon his world. Not everyone wanted to hear Partridge's opinions on this matter, however, particularly in the United States. One radio station in Panama City, Florida, even received a bomb threat after playing Dear God on the air.
Dear God.
Number 7, Your Mother's Got Goldie Looking Jane.
That's right, you knows what I'm saying. Your mother's offered me the goods, I'm not paying, it's that...
In the mid-2000s, the heyday of Welsh hip-hop group Goldie Lookin' Chain, they loved satire as much as possible. But still, sometimes they crossed a line that wouldn't work today. In fact, this song was often called Your Mother on the radio, rather than its full name to avoid mentioning certain organs.
Your mother's got a penis. Your mother's got a penis. Your mother's got a penis.
There are many ways to interpret the lyrics of this song, with some suggesting it's transphobic. Either way, the crude manner in which our rapping narrator describes the target of their ire is seldom heard on radios in this day and age.
Your mother got a penis. Your mother's got a penis. Your mother's got a penis.
Just have a listen for yourself, and you'll guess why it wasn't allowed on certain stations. Number 6. Relax. Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Relax, don't do it when you wanna go to it. Relax, don't do it when you wanna go.
It's a rare occurrence when the corporation that banned a song is responsible for its popularity. Before Frankie Goes to Hollywood performed Relax on Top of the Pops, it was nowhere near the mega hit it would become. This was before the execs at the BBC suddenly realised that the song was overtly erotic and decided to ban it from all their stations and TV shows. Though some actually got the memo way too late, DJ Mike Reed once had to cut the track live on the air after being alerted by the higher-ups that it was on the ban list.
When you wanna go.
Number 5. Killing an Arab. The Cure.
Standing on the beach with a gun in my hand, staring at the sea, staring at the sand.
They may be lauded as musical visionaries today, but this doesn't mean that The Cure was always able to escape criticism. The gothic rock legends actually released Killing an Arab as their debut single, featuring lyrics that were based upon a work of fiction, The Stranger by Albert Camus.
I can turn and walk away or I can fire the gun, staring at the sky, staring at the sun.
Yet, the decision of songwriter Robert Smith to choose this title over something perhaps more innocuous resulted in accusations that Killing an Arab was racist and promoted violence. This legacy never truly went away either, with this proverbial albatross existing as something of a curse within a Cure discography that's otherwise chock full of classics.
Feel a super jump, smooth in my hand, staring at the sea, staring at the sand.
Number 4. A Day in the Life. The Beatles.
I read the news today, oh boy, about a lucky man who made the grade.
Yeah, that's right. Even the most prolific band in British history saw themselves on the receiving end of some massive controversy. 6 words. That's all it took for this song to be banned from play on BBC Radio 1 when it was first released.
I saw the photograph. He blew his mind out in a car.
The line in question was, "I'd love to turn you on." And no, it wasn't deemed inappropriate for being sexual. Instead, the line was in reference to drugs, which Paul McCartney would later confirm.
I'd love to turn you.
Though it apparently hurt the Beeb execs at the time, they felt they had no other choice but to keep it off their stations, as glorifying drug use was largely frowned upon. Number 3. Better by You, Better Than Me. Judas Priest.
You can find a way to ease my passion.
On one hand, parents out of their mind find a way to sympathize with the family of James Vance, who died some years after a self-inflicted gunshot wound. However, they were ultimately pointing fingers in the wrong direction when they accused Judas Priest of including subliminal messaging within their cover of Spooky Tooth's Better By You, Better Than Me.
You hear the teaching of the wind. Tell her what I'm like within.
The Vances claimed that the song inspired James to attempt to take his own life, while the band countered that they would never intentionally want any of their fans to head down this road. The case was ultimately dismissed, and Judas Priest was exonerated, but the trial made headlines nationwide back in 1990. Number 2, Suicide Solution, Ozzy Osbourne. The world of heavy metal possesses a long history of being used as a scapegoat for everything from generational devil worship to unthinkable personal tragedy. The parents of John Daniel McCollum claimed that this track from Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz was what pushed their son over the breaking point. McCollum took his own life in 1984, and his parents took Osbourne to court over lyrical content. The plaintiffs claimed that a sequence in the song featured Ozzy telling the listener to get the gun and shoot. This is despite the fact that the word solution in the song is referring to alcohol, and not the means to McCollum's tragic end. Osbourne was eventually found not to be at fault in the case. Number 1, God Save the Queen, Sex Pistols.
God save the Queen! The fascist regime!
Malcolm McLaren and the Sex Pistols certainly seemed to know what they were doing when they released this two-fingered salute to their home nation back in 1977. God Save the Queen was a knowing riff on the UK's national anthem, while at the same time serving as a defining anthem of the 70s punk era. The tune was banned from radio, and many retail shops wouldn't carry physical copies of the single, despite brisk sales from outlets that did decide to stock the record. In essence, God Save the Queen did what all good punk rock should do. It made people PO'd. It also made the Sex Pistols famous. Which of these controversies do you think are overblown? Let us know in those comments below.